Hey guys, and welcome back to the show. I am your host, Megan Hardy, and I am the founder of Fitness Uncharted, which is a women's health and fitness coaching company that I designed to help women lose fat, build muscle, and improve their metabolism. So that way you can feel healthy and confident in your 30s, 40s, 50s, and beyond. And today, guys, we're going to be talking about why you can't stay in a calorie deficit indefinitely until you hit goal weight. Because that's what a lot of people try to do. They just keep dieting and dieting until they plan to continue dieting until they hit their goal weight. And, that makes sense, right? Like, if you're the person that's like, well, why would I stop dieting? If I have more weight to lose, why would I stop dieting? And like, okay, logically, does it make sense logically or not? Like, I understand that perspective. Like, I understand that thought of like, why, if I still have more weight on my frame that I need to get off, why would I stop dieting? But I'm going to talk about that in this episode. And before I jump on in, I just want to give a little disclaimer. If you hear any coughs or hacking on my end, that's me. I went on a trip like a little, well, at the time I'm recording this, it was like a little over a week ago now. But to a coaching conference in Florida, and it was a 4-day coaching conference. It was amazing. Basically just in a room full of other people doing the same thing that I do. And I would highly encourage too, if you don't already do this, like make sure you put yourself at least once a year, like annually, if not more than that, in a room full of people who are doing what you want to be doing, and people who are inspiring you and encouraging you and motivating you, and people who are 10 steps ahead of you. Like, put yourself in rooms where you feel like a little fish in a big pond, because it really makes you have to level up, and it really opens up your mind to the possibilities. Yes, it can be a little bit overwhelming, and yes, it can be, make you feel like a wee little human, a little person, when you're around other people doing bigger and bigger things than you. But it's a really great space to be in if you're someone who's growth minded and you want to grow and become better. So anyway, with that being said, that was my TED talk about put yourself in rooms with people doing the things you want to be doing. But we stayed in an Airbnb, and the air quality was just like awful. Like, I woke up one morning, I think the AC in our bedroom unit was like just kicking, like full blast. And I woke up with a scratchy throat. And then our rental car, we used Toro, if you're familiar with that. It's basically like where it's kind of like an Airbnb principle, but for cars. So you can rent other people's cars. And this one was listed as smoke free, but it was not smoke free. Like, it reeked of smoke. But it's not like a typical rental car company where we can just like grab a different car. It was like someone else's car that we rented from them. And so we messaged them and like, hey, like, it smells awful in here. It reeks of smoke. And they're like, yeah, it's supposed to be smoke free, but people break the rules. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah. And so here I am over here sounding like a boy in puberty, because I've like lost my voice, terrible sore throat, horrible cough for the last week now, to where I literally can't sleep at night because I'm coughing so much. So, all that being said, if you hear me sound like a boy in puberty because I can't reach a certain range in my pitch, or I start hacking, that is why. But let's jump on in. So, if you are someone who has weight to lose, or you just want to see more, maybe you want to see more muscle definition. Let's say, maybe you just have like 15 pounds or less, or you're the person who has, 30, 40, 50 pounds to lose. This is for you. And if you're someone who has, let's say, if you have 15 pounds or less to lose, yes, it could be possible for you to do one cut or one calorie deficit and to lose that weight all in one fell swoop. Like, that could be possible for you. But if you have anything more than that, like if you have 20 pounds or more to lose, then you're going to want to do it in phases. You're not going to want to diet and hold yourself in a cut until you reach goal weight. You're going to want to phase it, because the problem is, you guys, that your metabolism will downregulate. Like, you start burning less calories, and it's like basically your body's like kind of starvation mode, where it's like, hey, like, you're burning less. Also, if you're losing weight, your BMR, your basal metabolic rate, becomes less because you're becoming a smaller person. So you're naturally going to burn less calories, but also your metabolism starts to kind of down regulate where you're burning less and therefore you hit a plateau. And so you might still be doing the same exact thing, like exercise, nutrition, like you're still eating the same way you were before, you're still exercising consistently and disciplined there. But what was working for you before stops working. And so that's the most frustrating thing, right? Like if you're listening to this, you might be going, yep, like I just had that happen to me, or I've had that happen in the past where I saw results at first and then they just stopped, even though I was still being consistent. And so, what's the solution here? Is it eat less calories and move more? Right? Like that's what diet culture will tell you. That's what a lot of fitness gurus will tell you is like, hey, you're just not being consistent enough, or hey, like you're just not in a calorie deficit, or you're like, and truth be told, like you're not in a calorie deficit if you're not still losing, but you can't always be in a deficit. And the solution is not always to eat less and to move more, because the problem is that your metabolism will downregulate again. So if you just continue to eat less and you continue to move more, you keep eating less and less and less food, that just becomes unsustainable and you will be malnourished. So let's say your maintenance calories is well above 2000 calories, you put yourself into a 1500 calorie deficit and you're losing weight at first and then it stops. Okay, now you put yourself down to 1200 calories. For most people, that's already too low. For most people, that's still already lower than their BMR, which we never put our clients below that number. That's like your base number that you should not go below, because that's the amount of food that your body needs just to function well. So just for like digestion and respiration and just to like be a normal human being, like most people probably shouldn't go below 1200 calories. So let's say, okay, you put yourself down to 1200 calories. You see a little bit more weight loss. Cool. Then you hit another plateau. What do? You put yourself down in 900 calories, right? Like it just becomes unsustainable and you will be malnourished. And this is the current state for a lot of people who have found my program and who have come to work with us at the Fit You. They come to us with a trashed metabolism from years of dieting or super extreme, like super restrictive diets, like coming from 900 calorie deficits, or, just super, super restrictive diets with tons of things off limits, or using certain medications to, restrict their appetite and things like that. And it might have gotten them quote unquote results, but then it stopped working. And eventually they gained all the weight back, or they lost those quote unquote results that they had. And I say quote unquote because my philosophy is, what's the point of fast results if you can't actually maintain it long term? Yes, we all get the little like the dopamine rush of like, oh my gosh, quick results. Like we all love a good quick win, but it's really in the end not really real results if you don't know and your body can't actually sustain it. Right. And then hence, this is why, because most people are starting out this way, this is why we start 95% of our clients in a metabolism repair phase to prime and repair their metabolism. Because if we throw them right into a fat loss or a cut, we're shooting them in the foot. They're not going to be able to maintain it. Their metabolism is already jacked up. And if you missed the last episode, go back and listen to that, because I went into great detail on this in episode 54, talking about how to prime your metabolism for sustainable fat loss. So talking about this exact topic. So I won't dive deep into that here, but that's why we start most people with a metabolism or repair and priming phase. So, the question here, let's say you've already done your metabolism repair phase, right? Your metabolism is in a good place. Okay, why can't you diet until you hit goal weight? Why couldn't you? Right? The answer is because you will do damage to your metabolism and you will plateau. Like I said, if you have like more than like 20 pounds or more to lose, you probably need to do it in phases, or you're going to plateau and you're going to regain the weight and you're going to get really frustrated. So, eating less and moving more is not the answer. If I didn't already like dispel that, like that's not always the answer. You do have to periodize your nutrition. protocol. So, whatever you're doing with your nutrition, like you have to put that in and out of phases. That's really what periodize means. It means you are putting yourself in and out of dieting phases and back into a maintenance phase where you're eating more food intentionally. And for us, with our clients, like we normally hold a client in a fat loss phase for maybe 8 to 12 weeks. Um, let's say on average, but sometimes less, sometimes more, just depending on how much weight they have to lose, and their progress, their biofeedback. Biofeedback meaning like how is their hormones, how's their gut health, how is their bowel movements, how is their sleep quality, how is their energy in their workouts, their libido, their all those things. That's your body's biofeedback, and that will give us a lot of information about, okay, should we take them out of this cut yet or not? So, we're looking at that. We're looking at, are they still making progress? If it's still working, why change it up, right? If someone is still seeing weight loss and fat loss, if someone's still feeling amazing, we don't need to take them out of the cut yet. That's good. Let's keep going. But we're also looking at adherence and mental health too. So those are big ones as well. Like if you're not really adhering to the cut, or you're really feeling like that your psychology is not in a great place, like with it, let's take you out of the cut, girlfriend. Like let's try it again down the road a little bit later. Like you don't have to force. That's where diet culture tells you just like, oh, you're a failure if you can't do this. It's like, no, like maybe this is not the right time for you to do a quote unquote diet or cutting phase, right? So those are things we look at, but we will hardly ever be dieting our clients more than like 16 weeks typically. Again, there's exceptions to this and whatnot, but like, and that would be someone who really has a more significant amount of weight to lose, because they're going to see more progress for longer if they have more weight to lose. The closer and closer you get to your goal body weight and body composition, the harder it is to get those. And if you're listening to this and you've been there, those last 10 to 15 pounds are often the hardest, and it's going to get harder and harder. But if you think about it, okay, 16 weeks, you guys, for those of you who are like me and you're not a big mathematician, that's 4 months. So 16 weeks is 4 months. That's a third of the year. That is a long time to be dieting, like a third of the whole year to be dieting. So that's a long time to be in a calorie deficit. So the rule of thumb with a fat loss phase, and what we do with our clients in phase 2 of our program, is we like, just as a good rule of thumb, if you're doing this on your own, or you're working with us, the more time you spend in a deficit, the more time that you need to spend back at maintenance, meaning your maintenance calories, before your next deficit. So like one example of this is, I have a client who she's in a fat loss phase, and she was seeing progress for the first like 6 to 8 weeks, and then her body just kind of plateaued. She's getting close and closer to goal weight, but it kind of just plateaued for a week or two where she really wasn't seeing much change on the scale. And we're looking at other factors as well. You're not going to see change on the scale every single week, especially the closer you get to goal weight. So we're looking at other factors too, like how does she feel in her clothes? Like how are her progress pictures, her measurements? Like is she feeling leaner and tighter? Those things matter just as much as the scale. But we took her out of her calorie deficit for just like a week or two. And then we put her back into a calorie deficit. And sure enough, when we put her back into the calorie deficit after taking a diet break for just, a week and a half, 2 weeks, she started losing weight again because her body just needed that break from the calorie deficit. But let's say we had this client in a deficit for, up to 16 weeks. We would need to spend much more time back at maintenance before even trying a calorie deficit again. So maybe if she's been in deficit for 16 weeks, typically it's like, close to however long you were dieting, you would want to be back at maintenance, but it doesn't always have to be exact. So maybe, especially this is where we talk with clients and communicate with them. If they're really itching for another calorie deficit, we're like, hey, we can try it again sooner than what we would recommend. But if your body doesn't respond to a deficit again, then we just have to hold you at maintenance longer. Right. So, let's say they're in a deficit for 16 weeks and we pull them back up to maintenance, for 12 to 16 weeks, let's say they want to go back into a deficit after 8 weeks, we can try it. Let's do it. Let's see, let's give it a couple weeks and see if your body responds. If it doesn't, we got to bring you back up, girlfriend. So you need to kind of think the shorter that your diet is, the shorter amount of time you need to be back at maintenance calories before trying another cut or calorie deficit. But there's just a couple dangers of being in a calorie deficit for too long. One, like we've talked about, your metabolism will downregulate and you will hit plateaus. And then secondly is malnourishment. So, like I said, you're not like if you are an adult and you're not a toddler who, a toddler should be eating like, that 1200 to 1400 calorie range, you need more food. Like you will not be able to get the nutrients that you need if you are under eating that severely. So that is something that we risk when we're doing this chronic and restrictive dieting is malnourishment. Another thing that goes really overlooked is mental health. So we have, such a epidemic, especially for us ladies, of like anxiety and depression. I mean, anxiety, depression, anyone out there? Like, have you experienced that or struggled with that? It may be correlated back to your nutrition. I can tell you many of our clients have come off of antidepressants under the care of their doctors, but when they start our program and they actually get their nutrition back on point and they're actually fueling their body with enough food, their mental health improves and they're not so anxious. They're not so depressed. So if you're struggling with those things, let's look at your nutrition too. That's often overlooked. And then the other danger of being in a deficit for too long is muscle mass loss. This is huge. So you might be seeing the scale go down, but are you eating enough food and strength training to be able to maintain your muscle mass? Or are you losing just as much muscle as you are body fat? We don't want that because muscle mass, the more you lose, the further you're lowering your metabolism. And therefore, you're going to have a harder time to lose more body fat because you're going to have a lower metabolism. You're going to be burning less calories and you're increasing the skinny fat look, right? So if you're someone who's like lost a bunch of weight, but you're like, I still don't look toned, I still don't look lean and defined like I want to, you probably lost a good bit of muscle mass with that too, or more than you wanted to. So, with that being said, those are some of the kind of dangers of being in a deficit too long, but what should you do instead? So, first and foremost, you want to plan to live at maintenance calories. So, your maintenance calories being how much food you can eat to maintain your body weight. If you're in a surplus, that means you'd be putting on size or weight or muscle mass. If you're in a deficit, you should be losing weight or size. Maintenance means you're maintaining. So, you want to plan to live at maintenance most of the time and insert fat loss phases strategically throughout the year. So, like, maintenance should be the normal, not a calorie deficit. And if you need help with this or knowing like what your maintenance is or what your calorie deficit should be, et cetera, then download my in-depth macro guide. That's like 25 plus pages of very in-depth macro setting and adjustments for you guys so you can learn how to set your calories and your macros. So that's in the show notes. Go download that. And that will help you know basically what to do, like what I'm talking about right now. So go give that a download. And then also, if you need help with implementing this, then DM me or book a call with me and let's talk. Because there's one thing, like, knowledge is one thing, knowledge is great, but knowledge versus application is what gets results. So if you're not following through or you're not quite sure what to do, you're getting analysis paralysis, or you've been doing this for a while but you're not seeing the results that you want, get help. Like, reach out for help, whether that's me or someone else. I work with coaches myself in business and content creation, etc., because coaches need coaches too. I need someone to help me implement and take action and to apply these things that I'm learning. So if you need help, let's talk. My social media handles are in the show notes, as well as the direct booking link to get on my calendar. So that booking link, that'll get you directly to my calendar so you and I can talk personally. But, you've got to commit to being at maintenance more of the year than you are dieting. And that's really backwards from diet culture, which says diet, 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 diet. And then number two is when you are in a cut, you need to be in the cut. You need to be committed to the cut. I know too many people just kind of do it willy-nilly and aren't really committed. And therefore they're like kind of dieting for a really long time. And not only is that not super successful for physical results, but also it's like this, you are mentally dieting for so long and you get mental fatigue because you just mentally feel like you're dieting all the time. And if you actually really put your head down and do a cut for real for, 6 to 8 to 12 weeks, it doesn't have to be for life. It doesn't have to be the whole year. And who can commit to something and do something consistently for 6 to 8 weeks? I think we all can, knowing, okay, there's an end in sight. Let me just be really diligent about this. So if you missed it, go back and listen to episode 35. That one's labeled Tips to Curb Hunger Pangs and Be Successful in a Cut. Go back and give that a listen. And then also that's episode 35. And then also episode 49. That's called Pre-Dieting and Pre-Cut Checklist. And I give a bunch of tips in those episodes on how to make your cut successful. Because that's one thing is people like will try a calorie deficit or cut and they'll be like, oh, that didn't work. But they weren't really super committed and diligent about the cut. When you're in a cut, you need to be 90% consistent, heads down, let's do this thing. And if you're not there yet, or you're not in a mental space to be able to do that, then wait to do a cut. Like, don't put your metabolism and your mental health through that. Wait until you are ready. And then another thing, this is super important, is you need to have an exit strategy. When you are in a cut, most people, or let's say you're dieting, most people do a diet and then resume quote unquote normal life afterwards, right? You do a diet, say it's keto, it's Optavia, or Optavia, whatever it's called, Weight Watchers, whatever. You do the diet and then you resume your normal life once you've either lost the weight or you just got tired of the diet. And therefore, of course, because you resume old habits, you just regain the weight and lose the results. Like eventually, just it kind of creeps back on. Or for some people who did really restrictive diets, it rebounds super quick, right? And instead of doing that, you need to have an exit strategy for coming out of the cut. So for us with our clients and in this phase, we are, maybe slowly increasing calories. So if we had them in a cut, let's say, their calories are 2,300 at maintenance, and maybe we pulled them down to 17 or 1,800 calories. We're not going to be like, okay, just go enjoy food again, whatever. It's like, no, let's intentionally and slowly increase your calories back up. Let's get you back to your new maintenance, whatever that is, because as you've lost weight, you're going to have to recalculate what your new maintenance is again, because you're a smaller human being. Your new maintenance is probably going to be lower. And then let's make sure that the habits that we built in during your cut, we're sustaining those afterwards too, to help maintain the weight loss. And some weight regain is normal. I'll say like probably about 5 pounds. And that's really just because you're increasing calories, carbs, you probably have more water retention, you're literally eating more food again. So you have more food on your stomach, etc. But the rest of the weight you should be able to keep off if you have built in the right habits and have transitioned out of the cut successfully. And then what you want to do is once you have that exit strategy, you have intentionally brought yourself out of the cut, then you want to spend at least a few months back at maintenance and really focused on building muscle. This is where far too many people, and women especially, spend so much time focused on fat loss and dieting. We've got to be intentional about spending more time building muscle. This is going to help your metabolism. It's going to send your metabolism more through the roof. You're going to be able to eat more food and not have it, your body react the ways that it used to with holding on to more body weight, and you're going to be able to handle carbs better and all that good stuff. It's going to improve your aesthetics. The more muscle mass you have, even if the scale goes up, if you have more muscle mass versus fat, you're going to look tighter and more toned and leaner, more athletic and fit. So it's going to help your aesthetics. And it's also going to make your next fat loss phase even more successful, should you need one. So, maybe you don't need another fat loss phase, but if you can't, do your fat loss phase in one fell swoop, if you're focused for a few months again on building more muscle mass, it's going to make the next fat loss phase that much more successful and easier. And then when you do go to pull off that last bit of body fat, you're actually going to have lean muscle mass to show for it underneath. And therefore, you will look more toned. And there's also other tactics that you can use during your fat loss phases, like mini diet breaks, or quote unquote refeed days. That's kind of like what I mentioned with the one client. That was like a diet break. We didn't bring her back to maintenance for months. We just brought her back to maintenance calories for like a week or two. That's kind of a diet, quote unquote, diet break. And then also refeed days. That's where if you're really, really close to your goal body composition, you might want to, maybe be in a calorie deficit for 6 out of the 7 days of the week. And then 1 out of those days of the week, you're intentionally back at your maintenance calories. And again, this is just kind of tricking the body a little bit to avoid plateaus. And also psychologically can be nice because you can time it. Maybe one of your higher calorie days is on Saturday when you normally have date night or something like that. And I won't get into all of that right now as far as the refeed days and diet breaks. But if you guys want to know more about that, I can do another podcast episode about it. So you just let me know. I'll put that on the list. But in honor of time, I'll wrap it up here and leave you with one final thought that I just want to imprint on your brain. And I'm sorry if you can hear my notifications coming through. I should have put my computer on focus or do not disturb. But anyway, in honor of time, I want to just imprint this one thing on your brain. You cannot stay in a calorie deficit indefinitely and expect to continue to make progress. Like you will plateau. You will, probably go backwards. It just doesn't work like that, especially again, if you have more than 20 pounds to lose. Even if you don't, like if maybe you're just a slow progress type of person, like you really have to fight for those last 10 or 15 pounds. You might not want to try to do it all in one fat loss phase. And I know it seems like, dieting until you reach goal weight is the fastest way there, but it's really not. Like I can tell you from personal experience and from working with many, many, many clients, it's really not the fastest way there to try to just continuously diet until you reach goal weight. Like take the time to diet or to quote unquote cut the right way. And you will transform your body, guys. Like you will not only transform your body, but you'll actually be able to sustain it this time. Like how awesome would that be? Like knowing that you can be beach body ready year round, you can look good naked year round, you can feel confident in your skin year round because you actually can sustain it this time. And that's because you did it the right way. You periodized your nutrition protocol. You put yourself through the right phases. You weren't trying to go for a quick fix or quick dopamine hit with some, quick fix diet. You did it the right way. And then you don't have to diet ever again. Right. And so that's what I'll leave you with. That's all for today. But on our next episode, I'm going to share more with you about the third phase of our program. And that's where you learn how to do this. You learn how to maintain your results for life without ever having to diet or track your food again. Like, does that not sound good? Does that sound, too good to be true? I know it does. I know that's personally where I am. I might use tracking as a tool to dial things in here or there if I'm trying to get ready for a trip or something, whatever. But I don't track my food every day and I'm just in maintenance mode. I, don't need to. I'm just maintaining my results and I've learned how to intuitively eat for my body the right way. So join me on the next episode. That's exactly what we'll be talking about. So you never have to diet or track your food again if you don't want to, and learn how you can do this too. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope this was helpful, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.